orcs. Oh, that was close. Woo. Woo. Oh man, I'm gonna keep you for a while. Ew. These clothes are a little worse for wear. Let me change into something a little bit more appropriate. Give me 1 second. Much better. Hey everybody, how you doing? I am your host, Noah Sullivan, aka Scruffy, and today I'm going to be ranking the Middle-earth movies from worst to best. So that's Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Growing up, I've always been a fan of fantasy. I've always been reading fiction fantasy books, watching fiction fantasy movies, but probably one of the most influential movies that I ever watched growing up is Lord of the Rings. I am a huge fan of the franchise, so much so that I might as well get it tattooed on my back. I mean, it's not like I'm obsessed or anything, right? Anyways, I don't want to waste any more of your guys' time, so without further ado, let's get on to the ranking. And I think it goes without saying, but spoiler warning. Coming in last, in my opinion, the worst Middle-earth movie of the franchise is gonna have to go to The Hobbit: Desolation of Smaug. Now don't get me wrong, this movie was amazing. It had great story, fantastic characters, beautiful scenery, even though most of the scenery was CGI'd. And that comes to my first reason, is that there was just too much CGI. Don't get me wrong, CGI can be done right and it can look amazing when done right. And for the most part, they did that. But there were just certain parts in the movie where when the CGI mattered most, it just seems like it was lazily done and it looked more like a cartoon than it did an actual movie. Another one of the reasons why this is in last place, and this is more of a personal reason, but one of my favorite characters, Gandalf, wasn't really in the movie. He was in it for a few minutes in the beginning and then he just kind of disappeared. And then he showed back up again near the end and didn't really do much there. Now, I know he found out that Sauron was back and he was making those big moves, but other than that, he just wasn't really in it enough for me. Now, probably the biggest reason for me is going to have to be because the movie, out of all the other ones, just kind of felt bland. There was a lot of adventure, but it just didn't really feel exciting. They got captured by the woodland elves and they spent a majority of the time in jail until Bilbo came around and saved them. Thank you, Bilbo. And then after that, it was just a lot of running and hiding for the majority of the movie until they finally made it all the way to the Lonely Mountain, which, in my opinion, that was probably the highlight of the whole movie. And it's just such a shame that it was only the last 30 minutes of the movie out of a 2.5, 3 hour movie. I will say though that out of all of the movies, that this one probably has the greatest cliffhanger of all time. Just watching Smaug burst from the mountain and start flying towards Lake Town, knowing that he's about to burn that place to the ground.
I am death.
Or is it the water? Well, I guess if it's gonna go into the water, it's gonna go float down and it'll hit the... Anyway, it was cool, alright? The Hobbit, Battle of the Five Armies. This, in my opinion, was a great conclusion to the Hobbit trilogy. It really didn't leave any stone unturned. It seemed to solve all of the issues, all of the conflicts that had been building up throughout the past two movies. And the battles were fantastic. The battle between Azog and Thorin was amazing, and how the elves and the dwarves and man kind of came together near the end to defeat this foe was really cool. But it was also really sad to see such a fantastic character that I knew and loved just go freaking batshit crazy. And he did. He went mad over gold, And it was really disappointing for me. I was like, man, Thorin, why you gotta do that? And he just was threatening his friends, blaming his friends, and he just completely isolated himself throughout the majority of the movie. And that goes into another thing, is that it was missing one crucial thing that all of the Middle-earth movies have in common, and that is an exciting adventure. This one lacked that entirely. There was no journey, there was no adventure, there was no exciting adventure. They were just stuck in the Lonely Mountain throughout the whole movie. But where else would they go? That was their journey. They were just supposed to make it to the end, and they were already there. So all that was left to do was to solve the issues at hand, which they did. Luckily for me, for you guys, however, Thorin does redeem himself near the end, and he does overcome his madness and greed for gold, and ultimately ends up saving his friends. However, he does end up dying at the end of the movie, and that was another one of my things, is that a lot of my favorite characters ended up dying in this movie. Thorin, Keely, and Feely. It was really sad to see, especially when Keely was in love with that elf girl, and you thought they were gonna get together, and then they just took him out. Which really sucked. But again, that's more of a personal thing for me that might not be as big of a deal for you guys. Another one of the cool things about this movie, though, is that another one of the cool things about this movie is the awesome fight between Sauron, Gandalf, Saruman, and Galadriel. That was amazing. Especially when Galadriel got pissed. Oh my god, that was so cool. Another one of the cool things about this movie is that it had a sad ending. And you don't see that very often. You always get some type of happy ending or some type of compromised ending. But in this one, no, it was straight up sad. A lot of the characters that you may have liked ended up dying. People lost their homes. Bilbo lost his friends. It was sad. It was really sad. But I like that. It was different from other movies where they would end it off in a good way. And in this one, it ended it off in a very sad and bitter way. And I like it for that. The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey. This movie was just all around pretty awesome. It wasn't over the top action, and it wasn't extremely bland either. It was just right. This movie just brought new life into the franchise, and it did it in a big way. It was so amazing to sit there and watch and remember all of the cool places and all of the cool things and the references towards Lord of the Rings. It was just really cool. And not only that, but the enemies were pretty badass. You've got trolls, you've got goblins, you've got orcs, you've got the pale orc Azog, and you've got those giant guardians made out of stone. I think they were called storm giants or something. But either way, it was just, there was numerous amounts of enemies. Some of them that I hadn't seen before, that you guys hadn't seen before, and it was just really cool and it was really refreshing. There really isn't anything bad that I can say about this movie because it was just all around pretty awesome. I guess, again, there was a lot of unnecessary CGI that they didn't need, and they did have a pretty dumb reason to be able to read that map. I mean, come on. They had to have the exact day that map was made with the right phase of the moon, and it just so happened to be that exact day. Really? Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. This is it. This is my childhood right here. This is the movie that I watched growing up. It was just...
so good and tasty?
I mean, come on. We're talking Legolas, we're talking Aragorn, we're talking Gimli, Gandalf, Sam. No, just no. This movie had some of the most memorable moments out of all of the Middle-earth movies, and you know exactly what I'm talking about.
You shall not pass!
But come on, the Balrog was just freaking awesome. The characters were awesome. The story was awesome. I mean, it was a masterpiece. Obviously, though, no movie is perfect, even though this one came pretty close. There was just too much exposition. It was a very long-winded explanation of the whole story right in the beginning before we actually get into the action. It was a very, very slow beginning. Once it did get going, It was just so good. Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. Oh, you thought Gandalf was dead? Wipe those tears because he's back and he's better than ever. That's right. Moving on. This movie introduced one of my favorite characters in the franchise, which is Smeagol, Gollum, whatever you want to call him. He's a creepy bastard and I love him for it. This movie did what few others would do, and that is create multiple main characters. So now I don't have to just focus on Frodo and Sam, and I can focus on some better characters like Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, Theoden, literally anybody else in the movie aside from Frodo. Oh my God. I cannot express to you how much I hate Frodo. That sounds weird coming from me as somebody who has very clearly explained to you that I love this franchise, that I love the Middle-earth movies, that I love everything about it. However, out of all of the protagonists in any movie ever, Frodo is by far the most useless protagonist I have ever met in my entire life. He does nothing. He does nothing. He even says it himself to his friend Sam that he couldn't have made it very far without him, and you're damn right you wouldn't have made it 2 steps out the front door without getting your head chopped off. Sorry, I get heated about that, I'm sorry. But he is an extremely useless character, and he doesn't really do anything to help anybody else. He just kind of sits there and does nothing. He runs away a lot, and he gets captured a lot, and he gets stabbed a lot. Like he's not a good protagonist, which is why I personally consider Sam to be the protagonist and wish that it had been him instead of Frodo. But you know what? I can't have it all. But aside from that, the movie really was awesome. There was a lot of great battles. The battle at Helm's Deep was intense. But not only that, but my favorite dwarf, Gimli, got thrown by Aragorn.
Don't tell the elf.
And fun fact, in that scene when Aragorn kicks that helmet thinking that Merry and Pippin are dead, he had retaken that shot so many times that he actually broke his toe. So that shot that you see is the shot when he breaks his toe. Ouch. And I almost forgot about my buddy Treebeard. The Ents were really cool, and it was really awesome to see them finally go and fight at Isengard and take down Sauron and all of his armies and stuff. That was also really cool. And finally, the best Middle-earth movie is gonna have to go to Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, the final Lord of the Rings movie with an amazing conclusion. But once again, Frodo, you're completely useless. I mean, just come on. Come on, do something right. Anything, please. No, but seriously, this movie had it all. We got to see Smeagol's origin of how he found the ring and became Gollum. We got to see Aragorn develop finally and finally accept his birthright as the king. And then he goes into that cave with the army of the dead and he just yeets on him. He's like, nah man, I ain't gonna take that, you're coming with me. Battle of Gondor was amazing, especially when Aragorn showed up with his army of the dead and just completely wiped everybody out. I mean, I wish he had used that when they had gone to the Black Gate. Even the Battle of the Black Gate was really cool. And when Sauron tried to corrupt Aragorn's mind, and you think he's turned, and then he just dives in there. I mean, you can't get more badass than that. Unless you're Sam. Because Sam literally does everything for Frodo. He saves his butt on more than one occasion. Even when Frodo tells him to go home, he's like, nah, I know you're gonna mess up. Let me handle this. But he defeats the giant spider Shelob. He kills a bunch of orcs. He carries Frodo up to Mount Doom. This guy, he is the GOAT. He is the MVP. I cannot express this enough. Sam should have been the main protagonist. Anyway, getting off topic. The ending to this movie was amazing. We finally got to see the Ring of Power be destroyed in the volcano, along with Smeagol, which kind of sucks, but he wasn't going to change for the better. The ending to this movie was beautiful and emotional, and it was really bittersweet to see so many of my favorite characters that I had been getting emotionally attached to just go off into the sunset. And it was really sad. Even talking about it right now actually gets me pretty emotional. Even though I hate Frodo, it was really sad seeing him go. Alright guys, that's gonna do it for today's episode of Worst to Best. Do you agree with my rankings? If not, comment down below which Middle-earth movie is your favorite. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and hit that notification bell. That way you'll be notified as soon as the next video comes out. Subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.
Whoa, yeah, swear to God I'm with it. I don't see nobody in my lane that's quite go get it like me. Whoa, please don't be wasting my time with that business. Who you kidding, man? Yeah. Whoa, yeah, swear to God I'm with it.